Ethan Grant adjusted the collar of his khaki JOTC uniform, feeling the coarse fabric against the skin of his neck. The bedroom mirror reflected a 14-year-old boy, slender, yet already striving for military rigidity in his posture. It wasn't just a uniform. It was a second skin, a shield, a roadmap to the future he'd pictured for as long as he could remember. Being a cadet wasn't a hobby. It was the first step, the only step that mattered. He wanted West Point. He wanted to follow in their footsteps. His parents, Captain David Grant and Lieutenant Sarah Grant, embodied duty and honor, growing upon military bases, hearing stories of service, witnessing their dedication. All of it shaped Ethan. There was no hesitation in his choice, only quiet pride and iron determination. The uniform represented that lineage, the legacy he longed to carry forward. In the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee mingled with the soft aroma of pancakes. Captain Grant read the newspaper, his olive-green uniform, immaculate insignia, gleaming lieutenant. Grant, already in uniform, put dishes away with efficient movements. Their home, even off base, had its own order, a rhythm, set by years of discipline. "Ready, Ethan?" Lieutenant Grant asked, turning with a warm smile. "Yes, Mum." "Just finishing up the uniform," Ethan replied, stepping into the kitchen. Captain Grant lowered the newspaper. "Looks good. Remember what Sergeant Miller said about personal presentation. It's the first sign of respect for the program and for yourself. I remember, Dad, your uniform speaks before you do," Ethan quoted, repeating Sergeant Miller's mantra. The JOTC instructor saw in Ethan more than a kid following his parents. He saw potential, a spark of leadership. "Exactly," Captain Grant said with a small nod of approval. "Today is the last meeting before the regional competition. Show them what you can do, not just in theory but in practice. Discipline, focus, teamwork. I'll do my best," Ethan promised. Ethan's motivation was a complex mix of admiration for his parents and an inner need to prove his own worth. He didn't want to be just the son of Captain and Lieutenant Grant. He wanted to be Ethan Grant, cadet, future officer, someone who earned respect, not inherited it. JOTC was the proving ground where he could forge his own identity within the family legacy. Sergeant Miller, an Army veteran with a voice like sandpaper, had been pivotal. He saw the seriousness in Ethan's eyes, the way he absorbed every instruction, the dedication during drill practice and citizenship classes. "Grant," he'd said, after a particularly tough exercise, "you've got the fiber. It's not just the name you carry, it's the attitude. Keep this up and West Point won't be a dream, it'll be your destination." Those words echoed in Ethan, reinforcing his conviction. They left the house, 3 uniforms, a rare sight for their civilian neighbors. The car felt almost too small for so much contained discipline. The drive to school was filled with talk about the day, weekend plans, and a brief debate on the best way to lace combat. "Boots after the meeting. We could try that new restaurant near the base," Lieutenant Grant suggested. "I heard the ribs are fantastic." "Sounds great, Sarah," Captain Grant agreed. Ethan. "Fine by me," Ethan said, picturing himself seated in public in uniform with his parents. It wasn't vanity, it was belonging, purpose. In that uniform, he wasn't just 14. He was part of something larger. They reached the school, dropped Ethan off, and arranged to pick him up in a few hours. The JOTC meeting went as expected. Drills, classes, camaraderie among cadets. Ethan stood out, focused and precise. Sergeant Miller gave him a discreet nod of approval at the end. When his parents arrived, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. They got into the car, 3 uniforms headed to dinner. The restaurant was busy with families, couples, groups of friends. The hostess smiled. "Table for 3? "Yes, please," Captain Grant said. While they waited, Ethan observed the crowd. A few curious glances landed on their uniforms, but most people were absorbed in their own conversations. It was a reminder that civilian life had a different rhythm and concerns. But for Ethan, the military rhythm, discipline, and readiness felt normal. They sat at a center table. The waiter came friendly, and they ordered drinks and studied the menu. Conversation, clattered silverware, chimed a pleasant background hum. It was a moment of normal family life, a calm oasis before the night took an unexpected turn. Ethan felt comfortable, secure, seated between his parents in uniform. He felt exactly where he belonged. The first act of his service story was complete. He'd found his place, his initial purpose. But life, as Sergeant Miller often said, rarely follows a perfect plan. The tensions of the outside world were about to collide with their family calm. A delicious smell hung in the air, blending with the murmur of voices. Ethan thumbed through the menu torn between burgers and an image of himself marching at West Point. His parents chatted softly about work language. Ethan partly understood, full of technical terms and regulations. He liked listening, feeling included in their world, even from the edges. "I'm heading to the airstream," would Captain Grant said, getting up. "Me too, Dad," Ethan said, following, walking together past tables. Ethan noticed some glances and smiles, respect in some eyes, curiosity in others, familiar territory. In the restroom, Captain Grant washed his hands. "You're doing well in your TC, son," he said, meeting Ethan's eyes in the mirror. Sergeant Miller mentioned, "Your dedication makes me proud." His father's direct praise was precious. "Thanks, Dad. I'm just trying to honor the Grant name and get ready for West Point." Captain Grant nodded a slight smile. You've got what it takes. Discipline, brains. Just stay focused and remember, a good leader knows when to act and when to wait, and above all, protects those under his command. He patted Ethan's shoulder. "Let's get back. Your mum shouldn't sit alone too long." Leaving the airstream, the restaurant's atmosphere shifted abruptly. Conversation was replaced by tense silence, pierced by harsh shouts. Two men's faces, masked by bandanas, waved handguns, gesturing wildly. "This is a robbery. Nobody move hands where." "I can see them," one yelled voice. Muffled by cloth, Ethan's heart pounded, icy fear shooting down his spine. His eyes met his father's. Captain Grant's expression flipped from relaxed to alert, scanning the room for threats. The second robber, tall, heavy-set, spotted Lieutenant Grant. In uniform, he leveled his gun. "The well-looky here a hero. Stay quiet, sweetheart, unless you want a bullet." His voice dripped contempt. Ethan felt a rush of anger and fear. His mother threatened. He instinctively stepped forward, but his father's firm hand held him back. "Ethan, stay behind me," Captain Grant ordered. In a low, urgent whisper, eyes locked on the assailant, non-negotiable. The robbers barked commands, terrorizing patrons. An elderly man trembled. A woman clutched a crying baby. Their aggression hung thick, creating bottled panic. They moved through the restaurant, demanding wallets and phones. Captain Grant pulled Ethan back into the small restroom alcove, the door ajar. "Stay here, do not come out," he said, voice firm but urgent in a way Ethan had never heard. "But Mum," Ethan began. "Your mother can handle herself," Captain Grant cut in. "Your job is to stay safe. That's an order, cadet." Ethan wallowed hard. An order from his father, an army captain. Disobedience was unthinkable, but hiding while his parents faced danger was torture. He watched. His father pulled something small from his pocket, a pen, maybe a keychain, something discreet. "I'm going to create a distraction," Captain Grant whispered. "Stay here, Ethan. Stay here." Captain Grant slipped out, leaving the door ajar. Ethan listened, sounds that would be etched in memory forever. He saw his father move, stealthily positioning near the doorway. One robber approached their table, gun trained on Lieutenant Grant. The other stood nearer the entrance. Captain Grant tossed the keychain. It clattered on the tile near the restroom with a sharp, unexpected crack. "What was that?" One thug snarled, snapping his head toward the noise. Lieutenant Grant used the instant she needed. She sprang up, chair crashing back. Before the gunman could react, she was on him. Krav Mugger technique, lightning fast. She deflected the weapon, twisted. His wrist struck the side of his neck. He collapsed like a sack gun, skittering away, neutralized. The second robber, turning back at the commotion, raised his weapon at her. But Captain Grant was already moving. He emerged silently. The gunman focused on her, never saw him. Captain Grant seized the weapon, hand-forced it open with a precise, painful twist. Almost simultaneously, he wrapped an arm around the man's neck. Jiu-jitsu choke. The robber struggled. Gagged by technique and strength prevailed. Seconds later, resistance ceased. The second assailant slumped unconscious. A collective sigh of relief rolled through their restaurant patrons' stared mouths. Agape, two robbers neutralized by a military couple, Ethan, in the restroom doorway, felt a surge of admiration and relief. His parents, amazing. He was about to step out when he heard a sound. A footstep. At the front entrance, a third man appeared. No bandana, eyes cold and hard, pistol in hand cover. He saw his partners. Down saw Captain and Lieutenant Grant. His eyes narrowed. You bastards, he snarled, raising the gun. Relief flipped back to terror. Captain and Lieutenant Grant, a few yards away, were momentarily unarmed. The third robber held the advantage weapon aimed, ready to fire. Panic spiked. Ethan saw it all from the doorway. The gun on his parents, on defenseless people. His father's order, "Stay here, do not come out," echoed. But the gun, the real threat, the fear in others' eyes. He didn't think. Droid, discipline, sparring. Drills with his dad, crisis action lessons. The need to protect all fused into a single instinct. He left the restroom, swift, silent, using the nearest table as cover for a heartbeat. The third robber did not expect a 14-year-old cadet to appear. Ethan sprinted, low, exploiting surprise, and slammed into the robber-controlled aggression, using body weight to off-balance him simultaneously. He clamped the gun wrist, applying pressure at just the right point. Caught off guard, the gunman staggered. The weapon fired, the shot ricocheting off the ceiling with a deafening crack that sent screams and bodies ducking. But Ethan held on, leveraging the robber's momentum to twist the armed arm downward. In a swift motion, he wrenched the pistol free and hurled it away before the robber could recover. Ethan locked in a simple, beauty-effective armbar learned from his father. The man shrieked in pain and fury, writhing, but Ethan kept the pressure, pinning him to the floor. Silence fell again, broken only by Ethan's heavy breathing and the robbers' groans. Captain and Lieutenant Grant rushed over, faces a mix of shock, relief, and something more. Pride, perhaps patron-saints paralyzed by fear, rose slowly, staring at Ethan with awe. An elderly man, trembling, minutes before, approached cautiously. "My God," he whispered, staring at Ethan. You saved us." Still restraining the robber, Ethan only nodded, heart-pounding. He had disobeyed a direct order, but he had acted. He had helped. Captain Grant quickly retrieved the gun Ethan had thrown and secured it beyond. Reach. Lieutenant Grant helped maintain the hold until someone called the police. Minutes later, sirens wailed. Closer officers swarmed in, taking control. The three robbers were cuffed. The Grants were separated for statements. Ethan, adrenaline still surging, recounted events to an officer. His father's order, the third robber, his decision to act, respect, spread across the officer's face. Meanwhile, Captain and Lieutenant Grant spoke with other officers. Ethan saw them at a distance, gesturing, explaining, talking about him. Later, after the chaos settled and most patrons were released, the Grants met the detective in charge, a serious man with tired eyes and a faint smile. "Captain, Lieutenant, and Cadet Ethan," he said, nodding to the boy, "you acted with remarkable bravery and efficiency. That restaurant was packed. It could have been a massacre. You saved many lives today." He looked at Ethan. "Your dad told me he ordered you to stay in the restroom. Why did you disobey?" Ethan felt his parents' gaze, reprimand moment. He swallowed. "I heard the order, sir, but I saw the third man gun drawn. My parents were unarmed. People were terrified. I couldn't stay put. I acted on instinct, sir. And because I thought it was the right thing to do." The detective nodded slowly. Instinct and courage. Sometimes what's right on paper isn't right in the moment. You made a tough call, Cadet, and you saved the day. He turned to Captain and Lieutenant Grant. You must be very proud, Captain. Grant stepped forward, arms crossed, face stern. Ethan, you disobeyed a direct order in a high-risk situation. You endangered yourself. The officer's voice firm, authoritative. Ethan lowered his head. He knew he deserved their reprimand. In the Army, Captain Grant continued, orders exist for a reason. Based on tactical assessment and experience, disobedience can be catastrophic. Do you understand? Yes, sir, I understand. Oh, Ethan said quietly. Lieutenant Grant laid a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You acted against an order, Ethan, and that's serious. We could be furious, we could have. But her voice wavered as she looked at him, eyes shining. But you were right. You saw a threat we didn't see in time. You acted when no one else could. You used what you've learned. You were brave. You were a soldier. Captain Grant's stance eased, face softening. He looked at Ethan. Not as a captain to a cadet who disobeyed Butaz, a father to his son. You scared us, kid, but you made us proud today. You proved you've got the fiber to take initiative when the situation demands. That's rare. He stepped forward and hugged Ethan. Lieutenant Grant joined the embrace amid the wreckage, surrounded by police. The Grants held each other, tension melting into deep emotion. The cuffed robbers were led past. One glared at Ethan with hate, but Ethan met the stare unafraid. He was no longer the boy hiding in their room. As they left, some remaining patrons applauded. Choruses of thank you and heroes echoed. Ethan blushed, yet felt warmth in his chest. He didn't feel like a hero, just someone who did what was necessary. In the car home, the silence was reflective, not tense. So Captain Grant began breaking the quiet West Point still. The plan. Ethan glanced at his parents. The JOTC uniform felt heavier now, in a good way. It represented not just legacy, but his own ability to honor it. More than ever. Dad, he said firmly, I know I disobeyed and I'll accept the consequences, but I also know made a difference that I can be useful. Protect, lead. Lieutenant Grant took Ethan's hand. You proved that today, in a way no drill ever could. You know, Captain, Grant said, eyes on the road. The Army teaches rules and regulations, the backbone of order. But in combat situations shift in an instant, and sometimes the right decision isn't in the manual. You evaluated, adapted, and acted with courage. You did that today. He paused. I'm not saying disobeying orders is acceptable, far from it. But I understand why you acted, and given the circumstances, you did the right thing. A lump rose in Ethan's throat. His parents' validation after the reprimand meant the world. He knew the conversation about disobedience would continue, lessons to learn, but the core was clear. They saw not just the broken rule, but the motive and result. The restaurant incident, terrifying and dangerous, became a turning point, not on a training field or in a classroom, but in an ordinary place, at a leisure moment. There, Ethan Grant, Gerot Cadet, discovered the true depth of wearing that uniform, the meaning of readiness. He thought of the fear, the adrenaline, the snap decision to leave. The restroom, not movie heroics, but instinctual action born of training and a deep urge to protect. He hadn't acted for glory, but out of necessity. Theodile didn't scare him off. It propelled him, it solidified his purpose. West Point was no longer just a goal. It was the next logical step on a path he now knew he was meant to walk. He tested his courage under real fire and hadn't failed. He acted, and it mattered. Staring at the night sky through the car window, Ethan felt an odd calm. The day's turbulence ebbed, replaced by quiet resolve. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, full of rules, discipline, sacrifice, but he was ready. The uniform on his body was no longer only a symbol of family legacy, it was a symbol of his own strength, capacity, and future. That day, in a commonplace restaurant, He'd taken a giant stride toward the man he was destined to become. He was Ethan Grant, cadet, future officer of the United States Army, wore the colors, learned these steps, walked the line, measured breaths, heard the stories, felt the call, standing tall, ready for it all. And then the quiet broke apart. Sudden shadow in the heart, the rules. Ik knew they held me fast, but some moments move too fast. When the ground shakes and the sky turns grey, there's a different kind of price to pay. Beyond the orders, beyond the plan, a different beauty makes you aware. Fire, stand your ground. Hear the silent saving music sound. Felt the fear, felt the pull between the mandate and the soul, a second's choice. A breath held tight, stepped into the fading light. They taught me honor, taught me pride, but courage lives deep inside. Sometimes a map is left behind, and the path is one you and have to find. When the ground shakes and the sky turns grey, there's a different kind of price to pay. Beyond the orders, beyond the plan, a different beauty makes you find the fire. Stand your ground. Heat, 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 heat.